it's gonna be a messy day. Now, I say the last 2 times I said that, I lucked out, but your luck can't always help you. And it's overcast, misting, supposed to rain all day at the Meadows. Initially, it was supposed to be light rain, then some potential thunderstorms, and then done by 3 o'clock. Okay, I can live with that. Now, it's not supposed to rain till 2 or 1:30, and then it's supposed to pour rain just when I start, by the way. And then tonight, Northfield is like the Bermuda Triangle of weather, so you don't know what's going to go on. But it's supposed to rain all night there also. So it's supposed to be a miserable night and a miserable day. And so far, weather-wise, it's starting out that way. Now, the reality of the situation is, I was kind of pepped today. I was pumped. Addie's graduation today. If you're parents out there, or even grandparents, I'm sure you're the same. Maybe you're not. I don't know. Just certain moments kind of creep up on you and catch you by surprise. Now, yesterday I was so proud of Ava. She made honor roll when we moved over here. So I'm going to tell you guys exactly what happened when we moved over here. I think Ava and Ollie were in grade 5 and 7. I think 5 and 7. And it was, pandemic. We were off and on. Actually, they were in 4 and 6 the first time. We moved over on a student visa during the pandemic. They were working remotely in Guelph. Then they ended up going to St. Barnabas the next year, right? I believe. I remember meeting with the teachers, and they're looking at the curriculum. They're looking at what they've done. I think they've talked to them a little bit. And they've asked if they can stay in the grade one more year. They want to keep them back. I said, ma'am, it's a non-starter. Because and remember, we had just moved over during the pandemic. It was kind of temporary. Now we're leaning towards an entire life change where we would be in a different country without the safety net of our friends and our family, so to speak. I didn't know how things would go. Amy, obviously, there was some trepidation there. She's the mom, right? She's most worried about the kids. Now, the kids are excited, but they're kids. How would they really fit in? Now, I thought because they were my children, there wouldn't be a problem. And me being an optimist, that's where I stood. Amy she wanted to keep an eye on them, which we both did, but the kids fit in well, but when they started school, there was quite a transition. It was almost like the teachers were challenging us through them, and not in a horrible way. I think there was like, this is what they're going to have to do to go to the next grade at this school, and it's going to take a lot of work. And it was a massive transition. I remember Ava and Ollie, they were a little frustrated at the start. The curriculum was difficult. It's so much homework. And I remember talking to them all the time. Listen, go back a grade if you want. Or you can dig in. You guys see what your mother and I are doing, trying to make things work. We moved over here in incredibly stressful situation. I'd like you to stick it out and dig in. And they both ended up getting in with... Ollie gets along with everybody. Ava kind of get in with this smaller group of girls. 2 of them are like geniuses, literally. And she really started to pick up her work. Not only was she being challenged by the school, she was being challenged by her peers, which I liked. They wanted to pick her up and help her do well. And she was doing well. Is doing well. Ollie the same, he's a lot like me. When I was a kid, school was different. The thought of anything outside of where I lived was as foreign as a spaceship to me. There was no need to talk about post-secondary education. I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to be in horse racing. I wanted to be a driver. wanted to be Bill O'Donnell, John Campbell. That didn't work out. But I knew what I wanted to be. And it became obvious to me much earlier in my life that not every kid was like that, right? James, the first time I really understood it was James. He was going to university, right, working in business management or something, but he didn't want to be there. I've said this to you a million times, but James came about being James McDonald in the most unique way. You know, you think about it, you old horsemen out there, you think about it. You know, you love horses your whole life, you groom them, you know, you work for a stable, you maybe get your trainer's license, you train for a bit, you understand the game, you get a driver's license, you work your way through. James McDonald didn't pick up a brush probably until he was 21. And it was baptism by fire. As you know me well, you know what I'm like. I bet you James was behind the starting gate within 6 months of picking up that brush. He was just a natural. But he never knew what he wanted to be until he was. And I don't want to push our kids because I don't think that's fair. You know, everybody wants to see their kids be doctors or lawyers or whatever. But I want to see what they want to be too. And it's not that I told them they couldn't be in horse racing. Of course they can. But they're kids. They have other things on their radar. So I was so proud to see Ava get better and better and better, and then she was so excited. She worked so hard the last quarter of the year and ended up making honor roll. And I was pleased that she made honor roll, but I was most impressed at how hard she worked to get there, especially that last 2 months of school. And I was impressed that she was excited. She found out she made honor roll. Ollie, not so much honor roll, but he's getting there, right? He's understanding his work, getting better at it, and he did a project on Jackie Robinson. And this is what I love to see about him, right? Is that him and Ava are obviously grade 8 and 6, graduating into 7 and 9. And Ava did her project in grade 6 and got high marks. She got like, let's say like 82 out of 90. And she was excited. And Ollie worked on his and worked on his and worked on his. It's so weird because Ava has perfect penmanship and loves to write and loves to read. Ollie looks like a doctor's handwriting from another country. You can't understand it. Terrible penmanship. And he hates to write. He's got the attention span of me, I guess, in that regard. Always doing 6 things at once. But he took this project very seriously. And didn't he get 87 out of 90, the highest mark in the entire grade? And his first response to finding out was, Ava, what did you get? So I'm excited to see him doing well too. But little Addie, you know, when Addie was a kid, I made a video like this earlier. I just babbled on about Addie. So the Coles notes was this. Our first 2 children were born without any complications, any problems. Very minimal labor even for Amy and none for me. Like literally, she might have been, I remember she tells the story too. From when Ava was being born, it was a Sunday night. We were watching a movie. She said, I think, and Amy, if you know her, salt of the earth, quiet as hell, the most reserved person in the world, would never raise her voice, just super polite. Much like, she said, oh, she was, yeah, you're all right. Of course, we've never had a baby before. So I'm like, are you all right? We have the little bag that you're supposed to have ready. I said, you ready to go? She's not, we'll wait. I said, all right. So the show's almost over. And then another contraction, I guess, hits her. Yeah, maybe we should go. The show's almost over. I said, all right, let's go. So we're driving down there. I see, feel much. She said, I feel a little better now. I said, oh, great. Mind if we swing through Tim Hortons? One minute. We get through Tim Hortons. You want anything? No, I don't want anything. Let's go to the hospital. I said, all right. We go to the hospital. I remember it very vividly. She walks in. Miss McDonald, how are you? Good. She goes, I just feel a little something. Within 25 minutes, I think, or 30 minutes, Ava was born. It was like super quick. It might have been a little longer, but it was like super quick. And much the same for Ollie. Now we get to Adeline. Now, as you can do the math, right? 14 and turning 12, all the way down to 6. The kids were getting a little bit older, and we decided to have another child. It happened quick. So, we've had the 2 kids, and I'll never forget it. Amy got checked, her blood pressure was a little high, but it wasn't unexpected, I guess. The way she portrayed it to me, anyway. In hindsight, she may have fibbed. I'll never forget, I was at Mohawk, and the races were almost over. I knew that Amy had a checkup at like 5 o'clock. We had a babysitter for the kids. No big deal. I get a phone call. Amy said, hey, could you do me a favor? Yeah, anything, honey? What do you need? Could you maybe go with James and just grab my car from the hospital? So what are you talking about? They ran some tests. My blood pressure was a little higher than they'd like. So, I had to go to another place. And my car is at the hospital in Wolf. Where are you? She goes, they took me down to Hamilton. I said, hold on a second. How did you get to Hamilton? Oh, they took me in the ambulance. I said, Amy, what is going on? She goes, nothing, just my blood pressure was a little high. I said, Amy, they don't put you in an ambulance and take you to another hospital when your blood pressure is a little high. I'm not a doctor, but I don't think it works that way. So lo and behold, when I get down there, they tell me that she had preeclampsia. It's common, but it is serious and can get very serious. So as the doctor is talking to me, it dawns on me, they're keeping her at the hospital. She is, right now, at that moment, 11 weeks away from giving birth, supposedly. 11 weeks. I said, hold on here. Whoa. Just pump your brakes. She's almost 3 months. She's only 6 months in a week. He said, I know. What we're going to do is we're going to keep your wife here, put her on medication for this, and then she'll be fine. What we'd like to do is get her inside of a window. Around 6 to 8 weeks, we're very, very comfortable delivering the baby. And I said, what are you saying? He said, well, we're going to have to keep your wife here, Mr. McDonald, and then, if we can manage her blood pressure and she goes full term, fine. Full term. I said, she's going to be in the hospital for 11 weeks. Who's going to do all the stalls? I'm just joking. I said, I'm starting to get worried. He said, I understand. She's in the right place and she's in the right hands. We're going to keep it on. The only thing wrong now is her blood pressure. So if we can control it, no problem. If we can't, what we're trying to do is get her inside of that window of 8 to 6 weeks we can deliver the baby. So every week. Now this becomes habit. My mom comes up, people help out, take the kids to school, go check on Amy, bring her anything she needs, swing by the barn. I drive a little bit less, I think. This goes on and on. I remember Christmas Day, we sprung her from the hospital like jail, and asked the doctor if she could come home for Christmas Day. She did. Brought her back Christmas evening. Now this has become normal. This is 3 weeks of this we've been going on. I remember the doctor takes me aside. He said, "Mr. McDonald, we're inside of a window now of 8 weeks. We're a lot more comfortable. Her blood pressure is a little higher than we'd like it, so if it stays up around this area, we're probably going to deliver the baby. If it gets any higher, it will be immediately, and if it starts to come down, then we'll continue as is." So I'm thinking, she's been 3 weeks. She'll be fine, another till middle of January. I leave the hospital on the 28th of December. 6:30 in the morning, I get a call. "Mr. McDonald, you're needed at the hospital right away. We're going to deliver this baby." I get halfway to the hospital and I realize they didn't tell me if Amy was okay. Pretty scary time in my life. One of the scariest times in my life. If truth be told, if you were to ask me point blank, scariest thing you ever went through, December 29th of that year. In the morning, that was the scariest I've ever been maybe in my life. So, get to the hospital. Amy seems fine. It seemed like 5 minutes, and the baby was delivered. Amy seemed good. Everything was going good, but Addie I've never seen anything like it. She was like this big. It was the smallest thing I've ever seen in my life. Crying. Stayed in an incubator for like a month, and then to see her graduate today, bouncing around and giggling and laughing, all of that came flooding back. And for those of you that are parents or grandparents, had anything to do with premature childbirth, then you probably understand where I'm coming from. It was a very weird time in my life, and something I'll never forget. And it wasn't overshadowed, but going on at the same time, Amy and I, while she was pregnant, flew to New Zealand. I spoke in New Zealand. We went all over New Zealand. We went to. It was a great time, her and I. And then she was in the hospital, and I remember that they called from Australia. It was this conference call, commission, I think, the Owners Association, the Breeders, the Horsemen Association, and they wanted me to come to Australia and do a tour, a speaking tour for fractional ownership, much like the one I did in New Zealand. I said, I'd love to. Now, it was time sensitive because the sale, they wanted to do it for a week. The culmination of this speaking tour was going to be the sale, the Australian sale, like Lexington. It was kind of, can you do it or not? It wasn't like, well, I can come the next week or the next month. Can you do it or no? I said, well, don't know. Let me talk to my wife, who's currently in the hospital. So we talked about it, and she was likely not going to be able to go. If they did deliver the baby, and the baby was healthy, I think 2 months old was like the cutoff. If I'm not mistaken, I might be wrong. And with the baby being born early, it was 2 months and 6 days, I think, before I flew out. But the way the doctor explained it, it's 2 months from delivery date, or 2 months from your expected date. You can't. She's still 0 at 2 months and 6 days, pretty much, is what he was saying. So Kelly Spencer went on the trip. It was a lot of fun. But Australia was, and still is, on Amy's bucket list to go to. So I imagine someday we will go. Some of that stuff's lost on me. I was over there kind of working, sightseeing, having a good time, eating. And it was a lot of fun, but it certainly would have been a lot more fun with her there. So the whole point of this 19-minute video was a minor update on 2 horses. and an update on my morning. How incredibly odd, it felt to watch Addie graduate from kindergarten. Now, as I talked about earlier on, we had 2 horses race last night. Admiral Dio. I guess part of this video was initiated by an email I got from somebody saying, Anthony, Admiral Dio was 100 to 1 last night. Last week he was 12 to 1. Can we get him in a better class? Sure. Yeah. I mean, if one existed, I'd be happy to get him in that class. It's just the reason he was 100 to 1 last night, 25 to 1 or 12 to 1 the week before, was because simple explanation. He had the 7 and the 8 hole on a half-mile track at a 10-horse field. That is it. Nothing more. The week before that, he was picked to win. In fact, twice in this class, in his last 5 starts, he was picked to win. He's done well in here. He's been competitive. He doesn't race well from the back. And I couldn't go out of there with him last night because I knew that there was just a shark tank waiting for him. I was hoping that I wouldn't get away 10th by a million lengths at the half, but that's the way it was. Throughout the night, I knew that race was likely going to be a training trip. Halfway down the lane, I'm looking left. I see a bunch of horses climbing over the screen. You go out of there, I can assure you what is waiting for you, and you're not going to be happy. So I had to just bite the bullet and take them back. That's the way it is. Nobody should have been surprised. I think I was pretty vocal of the likelihood of that happening. But that is the right class for Admiral Dio. He gets away 1, 2, 3, 4. Not when he gets away 10. There's nothing I can do about that. So I do appreciate the email, and I understand that you're looking at the odds board saying, why is he so long? The simple answer is he's long, the same reason that most horses out of the 8 hole and the 7 hole are long on a half-mile track, because it's an incredibly difficult hill to climb. So that was that. Never Lose Felix. A number of people messaged me yesterday evening and this morning saying, okay, where do we go next with Felix? I think that's it for Felix with us. He's won his way out of the Naumers 1-2. Naumers 4 is going to be a little salty at Northfield. There's probably some racing for him at the Poconos, maybe with somebody else, or Saratoga, or the same culprits, the same ones we always use. The horse is sound, there's nothing wrong with him, but I think he's gone as far as he's going to go in our barn. The other horse, Blue Ventura, race good. There's just, again, mired in traffic. There's not much we can do about that. Now, I am a wee bit frustrated with the weather that we're having today, but that's neither here nor there. You have to race in it, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. Melisandre 145 is my first start of the day, I believe. That is, isn't it? Race 4? No, I think I won in race 3. She's my first start of the day at 145, and then we'll make our way to Arrowhead, Hanover. Later on tonight, we have Gymboree, Freedom Hill, and Mounds. Tomorrow, Texas Soprano, Chicago Hall. First Sire Stake race of the year. I believe he had the SBOA last time, but this is the first Sire Stake race in Ontario for him and for Gaslight Hall. And then Aunt Lily, Foxy, Seaside, and Gorgeous Package will make their way to Scioto. They're all mid to longer range shots. It's a tough place to race, and it is a tough condition sheet to navigate in the summer for these Buckeye type horses that have lots of money and wins from last year. It is going to be a little less difficult for Foxy, but she is going to have to step forward. A little more difficult for Gorgeous Package and Aunt Lily, but we'll see what we can get done with them. I'm going to give you guys, as I generally do, a normal Monday update of what's going on and how we're going to do it and how we plan on doing it. But for right now, I am going to continue on my way. I'm going to post this video for you. I'm going to bring you one later on today and bring you a video of all the babies, where they're at, where I expect them to be, how long that will take when they're qualifying, and where that will be. So tune in. I'll talk to you in just a little bit.